Welcome back. Well, there's a huge top 10 matchup going down in Vermillion tomorrow. The 6th-ranked and undefeated South Dakota Coyotes welcome the 3rd-ranked Youngstown State Penguins to the Dakota Dome for the annual D-Days game. Here's what the head coaches Bob Nielsen and Bo Pelini had to say about the matchup.
As you would expect with Youngstown State, you're going to get an outstanding defense and a little different type of offensive football team, a true ball control type offensive football team that is very hard to get off the field. You know, they're a team that's got an outstanding offensive line, very talented running game. They're going to try to control the football, and if they do that, they're a very difficult team to beat because of the quality of defense that they are. So you got to move the ball and hold it yourself. That's the way that you beat possession football teams. Is you've got to find ways to control the football yourself.
You got to like the way he comes out and competes and runs around, and he's a physical, tough kid. Takes a lot of hits. You know, he takes some hits because he runs with an attitude, and so I think that people, a team, a group of guys are going to rally around a kid like that, and I think to a certain extent this football team has taken on that identity. Because obviously he's kind of the focal point of the offense, so it kind of starts with him, and I think that's always the case, with a kid like that.
Well, now joining me to talk about that Dakota Days matchup is our USD guru, who will be calling the game as well tomorrow, Jay Elsen. So we heard Bo talk about USD's quarterback situation with Chris Streveler. Let's talk about Youngstown. Hunter Wells, their original starter, doubtful with an injury, so they're going to probably start Nathan Mays, and this will be his 2nd start of his career in this sold-out Dakota Days environment.
Yeah, it's a little bit more unique of a situation for him, to be sure. In fact, this would be, if he does in fact start the game, the 5th game in his career in which he has seen the significant amount of playing time. However, it will be just his 2nd career start, as Kelly said, and his 1st on the road. None of those other games at all where he saw significant time were on the road. They were all at home, and so that is a whole different battle. You go on the road in the Valley and you come back and you face this huge crowd with a lot of electricity, a lot of excitement going on from the hometown faithful at South Dakota on Saturday. It's going to be a different environment, to be sure. Certainly not as favorable for him coming in, and that's worth noting as you get ready for this game. And that's going to be one thing that's key for the Coyotes, I think, is to make him uncomfortable and not let him settle in and hurt him with his arm and with his legs, because he is a more typical dual threat kind of guy. Well,
there's going to be lots of red in the dome, but not for Youngstown State. So like I said earlier, Bo talked a lot about Chris Streveler, but last year, one of USD's best games as a team, but probably Chris Streveler, one of his worst games. 10 for 27, threw 2 picks, also only 42 yards on the ground. So what are you expecting this year? Clearly improved Chris Streveler, but also a different Youngstown team.
Yeah, Bo was very complimentary, to be sure, but his team did about as well as anyone against Chris Streveler in terms of defense last year, and that's going to be obviously worth paying attention to coming into this game as well. Chris has had such a fantastic start to the season. He's a totally different player. He's nowhere near as one-dimensional as he was a year ago, and it's hard for me to believe coming into this game that we're going to see that guy, the guy that we saw last year. Now, granted, Youngstown's defense is going to have a lot to say about that, but Chris is just such a more well-rounded quarterback right now. He's throwing the football well. He's not turning it over, which is something he did do in that game. And so all that is going to help him, certainly. I have a lot of trouble believing that Youngstown's going to be able to replicate its performance against him that they put forth a year ago. That being said, certainly this is a defense, one of the best, if not the best, the Yotes are going to face all year. And so Chris is going to have his A game.
And concerning Chris Streveler and the offense, I mean, let's talk about ball control, especially after Youngstown's game last week where they only allowed SDSU just under 15 minutes for time of possession, 37 plays for SDSU. I think, what was it, 11 in the second half? So, I mean, USD, they have to be on the field offensively, and they have to take care of business on defense. What's that challenge looking like?
Those are historic lows, by the way, for South Dakota State. 11 plays, an entire half of football. That's incredible. One way, if you're the defense, that you can avoid the Youngstown State Penguins piling up that kind of time of possession, defend the run. And the Yotes weren't very good in that department a year ago, but they probably had their best game, especially in the Valley, against the run against this Youngstown State team, which was probably even better running the football last year than they are this year. So that's something to be said. But the other thing is you want to try and make Mays uncomfortable. You want to try and make him throw the football. Obviously, then the clock is going to start and stop a little bit more. You're going to limit some of that ability of theirs to just continue pounding it down. You got to be good on third down defensively. Get yourselves off the field. And then you got to stay on schedule. You got to do the right things from an execution standpoint offensively. That's not really any kind of special analysis there. That's pretty much the way it is every game, but it's particularly important in a game against a team of this caliber that can control the football the way that Youngstown State can.
Well, and then finally, before we go, some news regarding the venue for tomorrow from the Board of Regents. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, it looks like the Dakota Dome is going to have a little bit different look in years to come. The initial approval from the Board of Regents came for the improvement plan for the Dakota Dome. It's a long way off, folks. They're probably not looking at breaking ground for this thing until probably somewhere in 2019. But this is the first step and the first phase of the 2 phases of this project, looking at a price tag of around $26 million. And so obviously the fundraising effort is now going to be in full swing. David Herbster and company already got that done, obviously, with all the athletic facilities improvements that they've made at the University of South Dakota here recently. But this is just the next step, the next challenge for them. But certainly exciting times for USD football all the way around. You consider the fact that the team is doing as well as it is, but you're talking new grandstand, new locker rooms, new meeting rooms. They're going to really up the ante here in terms of what that program's going to look like. And they're going to try and do it in a way that disrupts the football program and the other teams that use that facility as little as possible. All that, of course, still being worked out, but certainly a very, very good sign, a very good step to take in the next phase of this athletic facilities improvement plan at South Dakota.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jay. Exciting stuff for USD, but also exciting stuff in the future tomorrow. Anyways, Youngstown State at USD isn't the only FCS game going on in South Dakota tomorrow. Southern Illinois will be up north in Brookings to take on the 8th-ranked Jacks. And to look a little more into this matchup, let's hear from the coaches.
They have a system, and as we look at our last year's game and look at what they're doing now, they don't vary from that. They're going to be able to run power type football, but they really want to spread you out, throw the bubble screens, throw the bubbles and go, really isolate people in space. I give credit to their O-line, but give credit to their quarterback. He is really sharp back there, knows where the receivers are, knows where the pressure's coming from, gets rid of the ball.
Teams the same type of philosophy as far as what you're trying to accomplish on offense and defense and what style of play. We all have to be physical, and we all have to have great athletes to compete. So I never really thought of it as like that. I've never been up to South Dakota State, as an assistant or a player. But I know that they have a beautiful stadium. I can see it on film, and nothing but positive things as far as what I hear about the place. And Coach Stiegelmeier, every time I see him at the meetings and things like that, just outstanding coach and really mentor for the game and coaches like myself, young in their careers.
Game tomorrow in Brookings, 6 p.m. kickoff from Dana J. Dykehouse under the lights. The Missouri Valley has rights to that game, so we will not be broadcasting it, but you can catch it streaming on ESPN3. Coming up next, it's a preview of UND's and NDSU's matchups for the weekend, and later, learn what to expect this weekend when UND hockey heads north for a series with Alaska Anchorage. Stay tuned.